Let's go. Let's go.
This
could
end terribly. With your boys, Johnny, Tommy, and myself, Abiade. If they told you their podcast is better than ours, they're lying.
Mentirosos.
They might not be lying, but we gotta say that they're lying.
No, they're lying.
They're lying.
Right.
Lying.
Don't trust them.
We're supposed to say otherwise.
Don't trust them.
Fortnightly, we are here. God damn it!
Amen.
Apple Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube. You know the fucking deal.
All of that.
Back again.
Back again. A lot of people going back to the office, including myself. I was worried. I'm not gonna lie.
Why?
We launched this podcast during the lockdown. You know, when people were at home.
Okay.
People going back to their normal lives. How's that gonna affect us?
People got commuting time to fill.
But that's what I'm saying. You guys have just flipped home time with us to commute time with us, and we feel blessed. So thank you.
A couple of my peoples them have told me that they're reticent to listen to the podcast on public transport because they start smiling like idiots with headphones on.
Love it.
And
Laughing uncontrollably.
People don't know what they're smiling about.
No better way to spend your time on the district line.
Amen.
You feel me?
Amen.
Thank you to everybody who's been sending love. Endless love. DMs, messages, 1 or 2 random comments on the YouTube videos. We fucking love you, Don. We love you, Don.
YouTube if you're nasty.
YouTube if you're nasty. Yeah, they get kudos, extra kudos for listening on YouTube.
VIP tickets to the live show.
We just need more views there.
How
are you, man?
Should also shout out our first listener from Kurdistan, I think.
Oh, for real?
She's global.
Bruv.
Let's go.
Bruv, Kurdistan.
Shout out them,
Big
man.
up
Stone
you.
Newington, stand up.
Stand up. Big up everybody, though. How are you, man? What are you saying?
Boy, I'm not going to lie. Today,
Ooh.
I figured out how to turn on like Face ID for when you open WhatsApp.
Oh.
So if someone tries to open your WhatsApp and your phone's unlocked, they have to Face ID to actually get into the app to see messages.
What are you hiding, Johnny?
It's toxic summer. Let's go,
What
baby.
are you hiding?
Me and Chet
It's a good
Hanks,
question.
we're out here. Toxic
Shit.
season.
Shit.
WBS.
That's right.
I didn't know
That's
that was a thing. I'm still on the iPhone 6S.
Yeah, your phone is marg.
It works. It works.
It doesn't.
It works.
It's a terrible aesthetic.
But it works. It's got loads of space.
Terrible aesthetic. Is that what you use your phone for? Yeah, it's part of your image.
It's part of my brand.
What you got?
I don't know, whatever the most recent one is.
Don't even know what you got.
Very good. I like
Yes,
that.
the one with the best camera.
But that's all you're buying. Just go get a fucking camera, bruv.
No, because I have to carry 2 things.
That's fair. Yeah, it's fair.
How are you, Rich?
All good.
Just keep it moving.
The only thing that's changed between now and the last time you see me is I now could potentially, if you man want to choke in front of me right now, I'll be able to save your fucking lives.
Oh, first aid done.
Man's been doing first aid.
Come on.
Qualified.
Off-site
Come on.
with work.
Come on.
So if you choke, if you convulse, if you go into shock, if you get heat exhaustion, I'm there, bruv.
Man's all doing
I know what to
up
do.
Florence Nightingale
I
on
had to
that.
put man in the recovery position. Are you mad? Are you?
Come on.
I swear.
Life
Could be there, you're saying, though.
Yes.
Not I'm there, but I could help.
I'm saying.
I might.
I
I
know-
may be of service.
I know how to use
dependent
it.
on the person.
I know how to use a defibrillator.
If you die in my presence, it's because I don't like
It
you.
was a decision.
Fam.
I could have
Exactly.
helped
It was an
you.
active decision.
Yeah, I could have helped you.
You best pray I like you. If the heart starts acting up, you know what I mean?
That's right. Baywatch
Just
20.
pray I'm here for you. innit?
Baywatch 2022 pending.
But yeah, other than that, man, I'm cool. I got the vaccination text
Oh, come on.
this week, didn't I?
Come on. When are you booked in for?
I'm not.
Oh,
I'm not.
Oh, you're not
what do you
taking
mean?
it?
It sent a chill down my spine. I'm not gonna lie. I got the text and it's like, oh, you've been selected. Not selected.
Top 3 selected.
But you can now apply. You can go to the NHS website. And it just sent a chill up my spine. I don't know why. I'm not anti-vax. I'm not anti this vaccine. But I don't know, man.
So,
it just made me feel strange.
I got the super silver Pfizer
Oh, yes,
you
you
did.
did.
Friday.
You did.
last Friday.
Walk us
Are you
through it. Walk us
single
through
or double
it.
jabbed?
No, single jab.
Okay.
So first one,
How'd it go?
light work. Just walked straight in. They had quite an operation going. Don't know if half the people were volunteers or if they were like paid, but either way, they had a bunch of people. We were in a school/nursery kind of facility that they had like repurposed for vaccinations, and it was fine. Light
Did you
work.
get the sickies after, or
No,
how
no,
are you?
Nothing. I didn't even get the dead arm, to be honest.
Immune system on 10.
10-10.
On
You say
10.
produce of Zion right here. Like you say, blessed
It
people.
was a combination of the injera and the pounded yam, I think.
Hell yeah.
And
No,
Morley's.
it's actually the egusi soup, actually.
Don't know the
That's
dance.
actually what it was.
Oh,
Don't
for
know
real?
the dance.
That's what it was.
You people
know
don't
the
eat that.
dance.
We don't. That's why I said
You
combination.
people.
Okay.
He keeps
I
on,
spent-
he keeps
I
on
spent a
getting
lot of
away
time
with
on
the
the
you
West.
people.
Now hold on.
See,
So
we can't keep
there
letting
is a
him-
differentiation in this you people.
Nah.
Yeah.
Naturally, Tommy's people are not the same as your people. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, east west.
We were the same. We were the same.
But
Don't do
either
that,
way,
Johnny. Don't
it's
do
fine.
that,
Do
Johnny.
it. Do the jab. Do the jab.
The
Don't be an anti-vaxxer.
The Northern Africans do all that East-West stuff. Like, we're all Africa.
Yeah. SSA is all pretty much
You know
one,
what I mean?
basically.
I mean, that's a product of colonialism, but we can have that discussion another day.
Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
So we've kind of already asked you how you are, Tom. You've vaccinated and anything else? How's your week
It
been?
took me almost 2 hours to get here, firstly.
E3, baby.
Thanks,
third
thanks,
time-
Sadiq.
The third time that I'm making this voyage. And it had me wondering halfway through, how the fuck did people get around before Google Maps?
Bruh, it's a good
Mate,
question, man.
Like some of the back roads
They
that
had
this
the,
thing was suggesting to me, and it made me kind of have flashbacks, right, to the time when my dad would teach me how to read that
A to Z.
The old school.
And you know the madness of this A to Z. You have to go to the back, find the road name,
Yes.
and then like chart it across.
Yeah,
man,
bruv, you had to know grid references and shit.
Yeah,
Mad.
real deal.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how did people live? how could you live?
Yeah.
Stone
Literally.
Ages in
It's
that.
mad.
It's a madness.
That's why
It's-
black cabs got away
But
charging
that's
what
what
they
I'm
charged.
saying.
Yeah.
Technological advancements that we actually need, though, like driverless cars. Do we need it? Not sure. Not
No,
sure.
I think we do.
Google Maps, things like that, really help the people. Driverless cars, not so much.
Yeah, my thing about driverless cars, I don't think it makes sense until every car is driverless, right?
Why?
Because then they can all react in the same infrastructure. They can all respond to the same center of energy or same center of information. Sorry.
No, I think the
If you've-
driverless
if you've-
cars
if
are
you've got-
programmed to also be able to respond in an environment where there are
But that
other
produces
non-driverless
a
cars.
non-certain margin of error. Where
Sure,
if all
sure.
cars are automated, then they work on the same system.
Fine. All cars being automated is better, but some cars being automated is also good. It's better than what we have now.
Yo, Tommy's sick of driving, man. Man just wants to kick back and get a bit of fellatio with some rum in the back seat. Let the Tesla and Google do its thing.
future,
It's a
though.
free
That's
country.
the way it is.
It's a free
I
country.
feel you,
Big
though.
facts.
I can't be arsed, man.
Fellatio, though.
I couldn't have my life in the hands of a machine. If I'm going to die on the road, I want to do that shit.
So you wouldn't get a pacemaker.
Fast and Furious
That's
style.
technology we need, though, Johnny.
But that's putting your life in the hands of a machine.
But there's no real alternative in that instance.
Well, we almost have.
And my heart's
basically-
gone, bro.
you ever been stuck on the motorway? There's no.
Yeah,
But we also have
I don't know how
semi-
driverless cars help that, though.
Semi-driverless trains, don't we? The
DLR
driver
and
just
that.
sits there for joke, basically.
I quite like the idea. Someone was like, if you go to a house party, most London house parties are always accompanied by awful parking. If you had a driverless car, you could rock up to a driverless car in your driverless car to the crib. That driverless car can
Just
fuck off,
disappear.
fuck off and do it. Yeah, it can fuck off.
Go home.
Yeah, chauffeur itself somewhere else. And then
Park up.
park up somewhere where there is space, even if it's 10 miles away. And then when it's time for you to go, you press a little button and it whips around and you're... That's kind of slick.
That's kind of
kinda
slick. I've got time for that.
But who's talking about the valleys jobs?
What's that?
The valleys. It's all the valleys.
shit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Solidarity with the valet.
Have you ever validated
Workers' union.
Is that a thing here?
Always. No, not here.
Oh, do bizzle, baby.
But also in America.
Certain men are
Most of the
local,
States.
certain men are.
Yeah. Most of the world, there's a lot of big valet parking culture.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, not
That's what
in
makes driving so
Sadiq's
much
London.
fun. No, not in Sadiq's London.
They work on like tips, right? Or is that like what?
Yeah, I mean, like they'll get paid, I guess,
Okay.
the equivalent of minimum wage or whatever, but a large part of it's tips, basically.
Very mad. It's very mad. Anyway, lads, good to see you, man.
Hey, man, relieved to be here.
2 weeks later, here we go.
What a week
Episode
it's been.
17.
What a
This
2
could
weeks
end
it's been.
terribly. The boys are back, bitch.
That's right.
But it's been a bit mad.
It's
been a bit
As I've
crazy.
said 100 times before, as Busta Rhymes said before the seminal track with Mariah Carey, there's a lot of things going on tonight.
A lot of things going on tonight. Now, for the first time in probably about 7 months now, I'm actually just going to take a fucking back seat. All I'm going to do is I'm going to say 2 words. And then I'm going to kick back.
What are they?
Israel, Palestine. I'm sitting back.
Excellent. Let's ask the Jew what he thinks about the conflict. This is
I
a
sat
unique.
back and then I looked at Johnny.
This is a unique take. I'm sure no other podcast has covered this.
We don't need to go through it. You all know what the fuck's been going on. However, we'd be remiss to not go into it. And, you know, we ain't about to come in here and have Johnny speak about fucking Black Lives Matter, right? So it makes sense that he speaks about this, which is what he's going to do. And as I said, I'm going to kick back because for the first time in 17 episodes, this is going to feel fucking great to not hear the sound of my own voice, which is a problematic opinion given I'm a podcast host.
This could end terribly.
Very good. Disclaimer.
Yes, this could end terribly. Shit, where do we start? I mean, firstly...
How do you feel? What's it been like being Jew these last couple of weeks, Johnny boy?
Yeah, I mean, it's been tiring. But to an extent, how I feel kind of isn't really important in the grand scale of what's going on over there. It's just awful. It's awful. It's an awful tragedy. It's an awful civilian tragedy. It's an awful humanitarian tragedy. It's an unnecessary conflict. It's an asymmetric conflict. It's just awful. As a Jew in London over the last couple of weeks, it's been difficult. It's been difficult for many different reasons. I think I'm quite lucky in that, one, I kind of didn't grow up in that Northwest London or North London Jewish bubble community. Yeah. I don't live in that area. Everyone who knows me knows I'm Johnny the Jew, but I don't really look like a bait Jew beyond like the reasonably sized nose. For people who live in areas like Hampstead and Golders Green, it's been a tough couple of weeks. There have been attacks in the street. Everyone saw this motorcade of people driving past saying death to the Jews, rape their daughters and whatnot. There's a rabbi attacked in Chigwell today. There was someone, as of recording, someone attacked a driver in Golders Green. And I know the Jews aren't great drivers, but it's no excuse. And it has been tough. It has been tiring, and you've had to see we're good at dark humor's our thing.
I just don't know what I can and can't. Anyway,
we're a people of jokes. It's been tough, and what's also been tough is honestly seeing the volume of shite posted, seeing the volume of misinformation, of inaccurate information that people have been posting all over Instagram and Twitter. People, your own friends who either are misinformed, ill-informed, or 100 different reasons. There has been a lot of shit going on.
What would you say some of the bigger kind of pieces of shit or bad information that's going around?
But before we do that, maybe give an account, a balanced account of what's going on, and then lead up to why the misinformation is being spread. What information, as Tommy just asked, is the worst at the moment?
So, all right, we'll try and do a crash course in 3 or 4 5
Let's
minutes.
Try. Let's just try. It's not a simple topic, right? So we're going to try and do this.
We've got to give this one justice a little bit. So the genesis of the wider conflict and then why it's happened more recently. So this all goes back to kind of really the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. Lots of Jews at the advent of Zionism felt that what was then Ottoman Palestine, the old Israel, would be a safe place, a place of refuge, given there were pogroms and anti-Semitic activities in various places across Europe. At the same time, the Palestinian territory within the Ottoman Empire started to see itself with a more national identity. They didn't see themselves as Arabs in the same sense that Iranians don't see themselves as Arabs, in the same sense that certain parts of Syria, especially Kurdistan, don't see themselves as Arabs. They developed a specific national identity. And so as Jews started moving to what was Ottoman Palestine, there was a generally peaceful coexistence under Ottoman rule, but there were tensions developing as this kind of new nationalist Palestinian identity merged with an influx of Zionist Jews fleeing Russia, France, and other places. Then we got World War I and the Ottoman Empire fell apart. So my book that I keep telling everyone to read, Line in the Sand by James Barr, goes through the story of how the British and the French carved up what was the old Middle East, the old Ottoman Middle East, into 2 areas. And so the British took over the mandate of Palestine, what was known as the Palestinian territory of the Ottoman Empire. And then more and more Jews kept turning up for the same reasons, rising anti-Semitism in Europe, etc. There was also a more organized movement for a state of Israel to be created. We started seeing kind of Jewish resistance fighters preaching the calls to fight against the British to create a state of Israel within British Palestine. Then World War II happened. The British couldn't really afford to hold this land anymore because the empire was totally fucked. The country was bankrupt. So the United Nations divvied the land into 2. They said there's a bunch of land here for Palestine, a bunch of land here for Israel. The Israelis agreed, the United Nations voted on it, the Arabs disagreed, and that was the first Arab-Israeli war, 1948. What happened was the Israelis won that war, and they ended up taking over a lot of land that had previously been designated to the Palestinians as per the post-World War II UN declaration. Yeah. Okay, so then fast forward a little bit, we get these sporadic attacks, and we end up in the 1967 Six-Day War, where a six-nation coalition goes to war with Israel, and it ends pretty badly. That did end terribly for the Arabs, and most notably for Palestinian citizens, because Israel ended up taking over all of the territory that had previously been given to the Palestinians, as well as the Sinai Peninsula, which is kind of the bit of land between Israel and Egypt, or kind of like the eastern bit of Egypt.
Yeah.
And then what happened was further conflicts going on, etc., etc. We had the rise of Arab nationalism during the 60s and the 70s, and that led to Jews being expelled from other places in the Middle East. And so in the same sense that a lot of Palestinians were moved out of what was Palestine, Israel, in the 40s and again in the 60s, Jews were effectively kicked out of countries like Morocco, Algeria, Iraq, Syria, and they had to flee to Israel. And that's how you had this kind of increase in population of Mizrahi, Maghrebi Jews in Israel. Yeah. And then you end up with the 1978 Oslo Accords, which basically the 1978 Camp David Accords, which was the deal which kind of gave the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt, but the Arabs were so pissed off with Sadat for agreeing this deal that they assassinated him, which wasn't ideal. And so there was further Arab League or Arab nationalist tensions against Israel. And then we get to the Oslo Accords in the early 90s under Bill Clinton, and there was a divvying of the land, also not a great deal, but it was meant to be a starting point where there was portions of land within what used to be the 67 agreed borders, where in certain parts of Palestine, Palestinians had full control. There was joint control in another area, and then it was all under Israeli control. Now that third bit, section C, is important to remember. We're going to come back to it. Then we had various intifadahs, which means uprising in Arabic. This is where you had popular revolts against the Israeli occupation. The name, you may have heard this phrase, Israeli, it goes back to Israel winning the 67 war and taking over these lands. And the conflict goes on and on and on, kind of in perpetuity. There are later intifadas. The second intifada ends in 2005. The Israelis give back Gaza. But the problem is that during this time, Israel consistently sends settlers to live in that third section. So where there was a defined Palestine with three different systems of government, full Palestinian control, shared control, and Israeli control, Israel has been sending people to go and live in the bit that's under Israeli control.
Why?
Because it's their method of normalizing, expanding Israeli territory into that Palestinian area.
Whose method? When you say their method,
it tends to be far right or nationalist Israeli governments. It tends to be the Likud party. In general, this is who Netanyahu's representing. So we end up in a situation today where we basically had an unfortunate coincidence of the calendar, where the last week of Ramadan coincided with Yom Yerushalayim, which is Jerusalem Day, that celebrates the day in 1967 when Israeli forces recaptured East Jerusalem.
Right.
It's the first time in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years that Jerusalem had been a single city under Jewish control. So that's always a day where the nationalists and the far rightists in Israel come out to celebrate Israeli pride and fuck the Arabs kind of shtick. Coincided with the last week of Ramadan. Obviously not good timing.
Of course.
Obviously not good timing. And so tensions have been mounting, escalating. Both sides have been going tit for tat, in that history of Israel Palestine. What I didn't mention was that the West Bank, as it's called, which is kind of the east of Israel, it's called the West Bank because it's on the west bank of the River Jordan, is controlled by Fatah, the old Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, and the Gaza Strip is run by Hamas. Now, the reason that Israel justifies basically fucking the Palestinians constantly is because they consistently conflate Palestine with Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They took control of Gaza and they haven't really allowed any elections ever since. It's bang wrong for Israel to conflate them, especially when Jews in this country and Jews all over the world ask not to be conflated in our identity with the policies of an Israeli government. It's totally abhorrent. And without going too deep into why Fatah is no longer really an effective political institution, what Hamas does in the Gaza Strip is not relevant to how Israel treats Palestinian citizens in the West Bank. And that's bang wrong. It's been bang wrong for a very long time. This settler program, state-sanctioned protection, where basically people go and live and then soldiers go and protect them, is awful. It contravenes all types of international agreements. And that's where this big hoo-ha is kind of the wrong word, but this conflict has come from, is because there was a specific set of families who were about to be kicked out pending a Supreme Court decision as part of this ongoing program of displacing Palestinians from Israeli-controlled Palestine. And the protests kicked off, coincided, bad calendar timing, etc., etc. Boom. A region that is a perpetual tinderbox caught fire.
Yeah.
What would you say some of those kind of the misinformation going around at the moment?
So there's been a particularly popular infographic that's been going around. The two ladies sitting next to each other makes claims such as Israel doesn't exist or it never exists, has no international right to exist. It discredits the presence of Jews in that region recently and or historically. Agreed that Israel it's an asymmetric war in terms of how they fight the Palestinians, who basically throw rocks and Israel shoots back with bullets. It totally misrepresents the fact that Israel was attempted to be invaded twice in 1967 and subsequently the Yom Kippur War. Had the Arab coalitions successfully invaded Israel, there would not be an Israel today. It's a totally hypocritical view of looking at the conflict. And it also misuses and popularizes quite sinister phrases. In my opinion, people might disagree with this, but expressions such as, well, you may have seen from the river to the sea, which is an expression about Palestine. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, is basically an expression of Israel having no right to exist, that we should clear everyone out, and that
you're saying it's quite widespread.
Yes.
Is it quite widespread?
Yes, yeah? Yes. The land from the river to the sea should be under Palestinian control. That was never agreed upon by the United Nations. It has never been subsequently agreed. Yasser Arafat in the PLO never agreed from the river to the sea. It was an extremist phrase that has now been kind of sanitized and popularized. It kind of goes back to something I'm going to get into later, but all this kind of semblances of performance activism on both sides, from Jews who are just arguing awful things against Arabs because they're Jews, but also people engaging in this because it's 2021's Black Lives Matter moment. People who aren't educated and aren't genuinely engaged with this are sharing misinformation because they don't understand the history of the conflict.
Yeah.
And it's tiring.
I feel you.
It's sad. Yeah, it's awful. And this is the thing, like, it is tiring. It's tiring here. It's not easy for the Jews who live in Golders Green. But again, our kind of like sensitivities and our complaints are just nothing. They're totally irrelevant. There are children being bombed incessantly in Gaza. There are people being attacked in East Jerusalem, in Palestinian-controlled East Jerusalem. There are also civilians being attacked in Tel Aviv. I know people in Tel Aviv who are spending nights and nights in rocket shelters. Yeah. The important thing to remember is that Benjamin Netanyahu has failed to win 3 elections in a row. 50% of the country...
You just call him Bibi?
People call him Bibi. It's his popular name. 50% of the country fucking hates this guy.
Benjamin.
Yeah, I know, but Bibi?
Yeah,
that's his name.
Everyone calls him Bibi. Like, even US presidents and stuff will be like, oh, Bibi Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm. That's just his nickname, right?
Young Bibi.
Young B.
Okay.
He's kind of old B right now.
Yeah, okay.
Teflon B.
Teflon B, yeah. Anyway, 50% of the country fucking hates this guy, right? And the people I speak to in Israel are kind of like, we don't understand what the fuck this is happening. This has happened out of nowhere. Why this is happening is because the only way that he can secure a government in coalition is by pandering to the far right nationalists in Israel. The last time someone tried to really create a peace deal with the Arabs was in the 80s. I think it was Yitzhak Rabin, assassinated by a far-right nationalist for giving too much land. It's a problem. It's a problem. And if you go to Israel, the attitudes of Israelis towards the Arabs are abhorrent, racist, awful. And some of the arguments that you hear in this country from people say, well, Israel needs to exist because it's the only safe space for Jews. You think, well, no, Jews aren't particularly safe now. This conflict has not made Jews safer in Israel. Clearly, they're under rocket attack.
Or anywhere else, really.
It has definitely not made any of the Jews in Golders Green any safer, right? Israel does not have a right to exist just because we think that it might be a decent idea for Jews to have somewhere to escape to.
Yeah.
That might have been the idea 100 years ago. It has a right to exist because it has a right to exist under international law. I also believe because it was subsequently attacked multiple times and conquered territory. That's kind of how nation states are built and developed. But the overriding point is that it is important to differentiate solidarity with Palestine, which I think all Jews should have, all Jews particularly. And, you know, we all have our kind of racial particularities and our identities and things that we speak to. I speak to certain things as a Jew. You guys speak to certain things as a black man. As a Jew, I think it's unconscionable that Jews would not support and oppress people.
Yeah.
But then you also, again, going back to the points of misinformation, there have been comparisons between the state of Israel and Nazism and how they treat Palestinians. And I think that's abhorrent. I think that's a particularly nasty comparison to make. There's also been
comparisons to apartheid in South Africa.
So I think that's more, honestly, I do think that's more justified.
It's more apt.
I do think it's more justified.
I think, obviously, the whole thing is very sad. And like you said, there's, people dying. If I look at this from a slightly different angle, what I find interesting is how the response to all of this has changed over time. When I say response, I mean civilian response and international community response and all the rest of it. I found there's been a slight different tone this time around, I'd say.
How so?
I think this might be maybe the first time, unless I've read it wrong, and I'm no expert geopolitically, but that Israel may be starting to lose kind of that battle for hearts and minds, as they like to phrase it. Because like I think Bibi came out and they just announced a ceasefire yesterday or whatever,
which they've already violated. Yeah,
but he came out and he said, "Look, we've achieved all of our objectives for this battle, so we're happy to do the ceasefire, right?" Mm-hmm. And I think certainly they have whatever objectives they had, whatever kind of command control centers and whatever they wanted to destroy, they've destroyed for sure. Mm-hmm. But they may have won the battle, but I think a little bit of the war they may have lost, and that armor is that kind of hearts and minds element that I think that I speak of, because obviously for the last however many years, and as you mentioned, there's been like asymmetric power, right? That asymmetric power is militarily, it's diplomatically, but also in the media, right? So there's been like some kind of unwritten rule basically where in the media you can't really criticize Israel, nor can you speak to the suffering of the Palestinian people, right? Because ultimately the only people you really expect to speak of this kind of stuff is largely politicians, and politicians will only speak to things where they see an upside, right? And there is no upside in championing the cause of the Palestinian people or whatever, right? At that time, which is an awful but that was the political reality, right? The political reality of what we've seen over the last 15 years. So I think what we've seen now is that kind of stock political kind of answers don't fly anymore, right? So you've seen Joe Biden and Andrew Yang and Boris Johnson and everyone try to give that kind of stock answer of, Israel has a right to defend itself, which of course, sure, every country has a right to defend itself. But that kind of like unsophisticated, kind of unnuanced view would fly before. But now it doesn't work, right? They're getting pushback to explain it. There's a myriad of alternative media, let's say, that people can broadcast to or get their news from. And all of that has led to people, whether they have the full set of information or not, looking around and seeing that there's a group of people who are being subjugated, basically, right? And as a collective, these newly found activists, maybe as you put it, have come out and said, nah, like we can't have this. Right. And as a result, you're seeing the politicians having to find new rhetoric. Basically, right? And that's what I mean. And there's a bunch of stuff around what Bernie Sanders, I don't know if you read, he wrote like some New York Times opinion piece, and he said some interesting stuff. But I think what people have to understand is you have like racists, all types of abhorrent people in every country, right? So there are in here, for example, I know UK best. So in the UK, you might have the National Front or the BNP or people on the fringe left and the fringe right and
the
stuff.
Tory
right?
party.
So you have a diverse set of opinions, basically, right? The only thing is in Israel now, it's that kind of hard right opinion, basically, that has been in power for a prolonged period of time, right? With the crumbling of the left and all the rest of it. So I think, I think it's sad, and I think Bibi's. I think it's political. All of this
is entirely politics.
Politics is local, and all of this is basically a plea, I guess, from him to stay in power, basically.
Instagram people, stop getting so mad when people don't post the things you post. Like, relax. We say this every single fucking time. These topics are important. Absolutely. Getting behind them and supporting them. I don't know how much you actually do by reposting a thing on your Instagram that only your followers see, your little echo chamber of support see, but fine, do your thing, but leave it at that. Stop alienating people. Is that fair?
Echo chamber.
Or genuinely engage. You know, Israel has done terrible things in the last 5 years, which is the last thing I'd say, you know.
Yeah.
They passed the nation state bill or some shit. It's a fucking awful piece of legislation. It basically said that only Jews have the right to self-determination in the land of Israel. Fucking abhorrent.
Yeah.
Reduced Arabic to a second rate language in the country.
All types of UN
Awful.
contraventions. Right?
Yeah, all kinds of settler contraventions, all kinds of, the move to remove the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, deliberately provocative. Yeah, we could spend hours and hours, but this, the last thing is solidarity with Palestinians. Likud are fucking assholes. Netanyahu's an asshole. Don't ask Jews to explain the domestic policy of the Israeli government, because it's not our fucking beef.
Amen.
And stop anti-Semitism, stop being anti-Semitic, stop attacking Jews in Golders Green, because they can't even drive, let alone direct Israeli domestic policy.
They need driverless cars.
They need driverless cars.
Yeah.
They need
But
driverless
also
cars.
keep. If you see something you don't like, say something, right?
Yeah.
That's what people are doing, regardless of
Well,
how
get informed
or not you are. If you see something that you deem to be whatever, unchecked oppression or whatever, say something. It's fine. You don't have to know everything. Like, you can still say what the fuck's going on here, and then as long as you're open to be educated, cool. Like,
For real.
This asymmetric conflict has got to stop, because nobody wins. Nobody wins. But on the topic of asymmetric conflict,
violence.
Violence to an extent. This is a topic that I have no idea, so I'm going to take Rich's role on this one. I'm going to sit the fuck back. But there's been a podcast with a comparable follower base to ours. It's also
big facts.
Also presented by a man with a taste for really fucking awful beanie hats. That's been the Joe Budden Podcast, and there's been some small controversy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, love the JBP, right? Don't know how many of our listeners listen to the Joe Budden Podcast, but it's a very, very big podcast, you know, hosted by the one and only Joe Budden.
Shit hat man.
Ex-rapper. The reason why this is interesting and why this topic is being brought up today is because the podcast that they've been running for the last 5 or 6 years has basically gone through some dramatic changes recently, with the two main co-hosts, Rory and Maul, leaving the podcast.
Why did they leave, Rich?
The reason that they left was, as it turns out, over a bit of a contractual wrangling, a bit of a debacle with regards to the finer details of their paperwork. Now, shall we break it down for them?
Well, this was a heated discussion in the IG group chat.
Yeah,
which I ignored. So I'm happy for you to argue it out here.
Ultimately, we have a situation where Joe Budden obviously is very, very famous and has made a name for himself both musically and after his music career. He went on Love and Hip Hop. He started his YouTube channel, Joe Budden TV, very, very early, built up a personality online and was heavy on Twitter and built up an account of followers over there. Now, that transformed into a podcast which he started with a couple of people, which then grew to being what we know as the Joe Budden Podcast with Rory and Maul. They've been going for about 5 years.
About 5 years.
The last couple of weeks, they broke up. Rory and Maul didn't show up for a couple of episodes. People were asking what's going on, rumors flying around that there's trouble in paradise.
Oh, boy.
Right? Joe brought a couple of his other friends to fill in, and then it emerged that there was some issues with paperwork. And what I mean by that is that it emerged that Joe Budden, Rory, and Moore.
Sorry,
had
can I
some
just interject?
Okay.
I think one thing that's also important to say just before we got to this part is that Joe Budden is also a big champion of independence and ownership.
Don't do that. Don't. I see what you're trying to do.
That's the one thing that I do know.
Because
I know what you're trying to do, Tommy. Tommy, I know what you're trying to do, Tommy. Don't even try that. You're trying to get your narrative in early.
I'm just saying.
He's trying.
You can't get to the
no,
split
but
up
it's important.
before-
It's important. Joe Budden has walked away
Big
from
cash.
contracts,
Big cash.
cash. He hates the idea of selling the rights to his IP and the things that he has helped cultivate, because he always runs on the notion, on the idea, which I am wholeheartedly in agreement with, that the creators out there are tragically underpaid across every single industry, whether it's sport, entertainment, podcasting, whatever it is. Typically, the biggest names, the content creators, the minds behind all of the ideas, are the most tragically underpaid. So he has taken it upon himself in a very dramatic fashion throughout his 20-year career to underline that and to continually champion independence, owning your rights, owning your IPs, etc., etc. So Tommy is absolutely spot on. But Tommy said that for a reason, and we're going to get to that in a second. And we're going to blast through this because the topic isn't actually about Joe Budden, Rory, and Moore. It's about how friends and business mix. Turns out Rory and Moore, they had a contract, which was a percentage or a profit share agreement for the earnings that are made on the Joe Budden podcast. Now, it's important to say that the Joe Budden podcast then became a network. So the YouTube channel that was Joe Budden TV became the Joe Budden Network. And with that, he launched 2 other podcasts, and there are plans for more content to come. So the Joe Budden podcast became a show on a wider network. They got the Spotify deal, which was a huge deal, which was for 2 years. They came out of that contract. They severed those ties pretty badly. Wasn't a great deal for all parties. Again, Joe going down the independent route. They got independent sponsors by Cash App, who are owned by Square, huge company run by Jack Dorsey, and also Jay-Z, who's on the board there.
Come on.
And now they recently moved to Patreon, where Joe was also made head of creative equity. So he is involved in the procurement and acquisition of content, creators, and whatever for Patreon.
Ironic.
Rory and Moore ultimately believed in their contract having a profit share agreement meant that they owned part of the podcast. Is that fair?
I think so, yeah. And
That's
that's the way I...
And
That seems dumb.
and it's natural if you have a profit share agreement to want to know how much money is being made, because how do you know how much money you deserve
That's fair.
if you don't know how much money is being made? So they requested accounting. They requested the numbers associated with a period of time. They were sent those numbers via email in a snapshotted sort of Excel sheet or an attachment with an Excel sheet.
He screenshotted them their P's, basically.
And apparently there were some discrepancies, not necessarily with regards to their pay, but with regards to a certain amount which they may have been entitled to a chunk of. I think it was like $400,000. They then started getting very, very upset, feeling as though they were being shortchanged.
Okay.
That, for the last year, caused problems which were actually quite tangible if you watch the Joe
Could you
Budden
tell?
podcast over time. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
So it all came to a head very, very recently with them deciding to kind of take a break. Rory and Joe getting into an argument with Joe telling him, don't come to the podcast for a few episodes. Moore reacting very badly to that and saying, how the fuck dare you tell him not to come to the show that we've helped build? Tutus, it blows up. And Joe publicly fires Rory on an episode of Joe Budden Podcast.
No way.
And then shortly after, fires Moore as well.
Jesus.
Everybody went fucking crazy. Joe, how dare you? You're a champion for independence. You're a champion for getting your contracts right. And you ain't even sorting out your boys who have helped you build the podcast. And it became a huge Twitter debate as to who was in the right and who was in the wrong.
So who is in the right and who
Now,
is in the wrong?
This is a good question. And let's focus on this for a little bit of time, because again, it's about friendships and contracts and how you should approach that shit. I personally believe that Joe Budden has always been the star of that show.
Okay.
He has always been the star of that show. He's
Called the Joe Budden Podcast.
It was called, I'll name this podcast later to start with. Then it
That's
became
very important.
Then it became the Joe Budden Podcast.
Okay.
He is the star of the show. And I mean that in the sense that he is the better podcaster of them all. He is the A mic, so to speak.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
You verifying my opinion there, Johnny?
It's important.
No, fair enough.
Judge Johnny.
No,
Judge Johnny, because he's gonna at the end of this little segment,
he's gonna give a verdict.
Say who he thinks.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever
is
John
right
said.
or wrong.
Let's do that. I quite like that.
So just to say, I am you, listener.
Justice, Johnny.
If you haven't got a fucking clue about what's happened, and this is your first time hearing this, I am you. Rich, carry on.
Yeah. So my view is that Joe Budden, as the creator, founder, owner of both the podcast and the network, who essentially hired Rory and Maul to come onto the podcast, is the podcast.
Okay.
He is the personality. He is the main guy. He's the funny one. He's the one who gives us all of the biggest hot takes. He's the one who lives, breathes it. He's the funniest one for the most part. Maul is very funny. But his life up to the podcast and through the podcast's years remains the source of a lot of their content, whether it's him going embarrassing himself on Love and Hip Hop, whether it's crazy stuff he's done on the internet, I think it is. But
we'll do the defense and we'll come to the prosecution later.
Yeah, and yes, Rory and Maul have come in and they've helped this thing grow. And since they've come in, we've seen exponential growth in what these guys have done, Spotify deal, etc., etc. But I would argue that Joe's star has also risen while that has been going on because of all these aforementioned things that I mentioned. His overall marketability grew with going on Love and Hip Hop, getting the Revolt deal with Diddy, becoming a host of a hugely popular complex show called Everyday Struggle, which he did in tandem with the podcast in years 2 and 3, I would say.
You must have come across Everyday. DJ
Academics and Joe Budden. It's like a hip hop show. Nadeska moderates. Then when he left Everyday Struggle, that's when Joe Budden Podcast was his main baby, and that's when it shot up because he had a huge story to tell. And on Everyday Struggle, he had got into huge arguments with people like Lil Yachty, which went viral. Like loads of different takes with him. Migos, a near fight. You must have seen that where Joe Budden almost gets into it with the Migos at an award show, right? These are all the things to me that prove or are evidence for the fact that Joe Budden really is the guy. Now, the problem...
The guy for what?
He is the guy on that podcast. He's the people. He's the reason people go to that podcast, right? He's the reason why they get the 1 million views a week that they get. So he always owned it.
Okay.
And he hired those guys. Why they think they own the podcast is the bigger issue.
Okay.
But before I crack on,
well, I was going to say that's the case for the defense.
Exactly.
And prosecution, please.
I don't know if I'm not here to prosecute Joe. I'm a big fan. Like I listened to the podcast for a long time. I'm a fan of his. I think he's very compelling the way he speaks to camera. Basically, he can run a one-man show in a very compelling way.
Okay.
But I think there's nothing wrong with anything that Abiadi said so far. I think it's very factual explanation. But one or two things that you have to kind of bear in mind is these are 3 friends that hosted a podcast, right?
Okay.
When this podcast started, even though Joe had a music career, Joe wasn't anybody in particular, right? Let's be honest, right?
He had Pump It Up, bro.
Yeah, but that's my point, right? He wasn't a one-hit wonder.
Pump it up.
Was that him?
Just
yeah,
nice.
that was his biggest tune, Pump It Up.
Fire.
But that wasn't. I mean, like, it would be harsh to call him a one-hit wonder, right? Obviously, but he didn't. There wasn't much going on when the podcast started.
Is it like how Jedward had one song and then a couple bangers?
I don't know, but like,
that's comparable. That's the peer group. Joe Budden and Jedward.
This is the Jedward podcast.
So basically, these friends started
They're
a podcast.
on Smoke on Twitter, by the way. Anyway,
big fans.
And it seems that my G's ego basically is unable to be kept in check.
Ego.
That's basically what it comes down to. He started with nothing.
Okay.
Basically,
Yeah.
at the point at which the podcast started, they've done like almost 500 episodes, 460 something.
Wow.
The set of 3 of them got together within the first 15, right?
Okay.
So him and Rory were there from episode 1, and then Maul ended up joining them, whatever, episode 15, 16, some shit like this, right? And then it started.
Fine.
Now, the other thing that's undisputed is that Joe is the A-side, right? He is the most engaging person in that podcast. He is the one that kind of runs it, dictates the flow, let's say the ebb and flow of the whole thing. Fine. And he gets the majority ownership or revenue, let's say, that's generated from this thing. Fine. That's something they're all comfortable with. The issue now becomes that they walked away from a big deal. They walked away from this huge Spotify deal, apparently.
I think it was after Oh yes, the renegotiation of
that's
Spotify.
when he was going nuts about why Spotify are fucking us. They're not giving us our
because
true
that was
value.
around the time that they gave Joe Rogan $180 million. It was the same time that Joe Budden was renegotiating for his podcast.
That's also to lease Joe Rogan's content. It wasn't even to buy it.
Yeah.
They leased it for 2 years. So so Budden was using that as a comparable and whatever. That doesn't matter. What it comes down to, I think, is that these brothers they're all champions. The other thing that we have to say, they're all champions of independent ownership of your own shit.
I've seen this.
Yeah, and Joe Budden's been talking about this from his music career. Like, I had to wait X amount of years to get out bad record deals, etc., etc. So they walked away from a bunch of cash, and it seems like in the background, the issues that have been going around is about money, basically, right? Where these brothers are not beefing how much they're getting paid, nor they have an issue with their split. They're only saying, we need a bit more transparency around the business, basically, because even though they gave up IP, right? So what happened was Joe Budden was like, no, this is my idea. This whole thing's me, basically, right? They were like, yeah, it's true. It was kind of your idea. So we don't mind if you want to keep the IP. Keep the IP.
Okay.
And then if he kept the IP, then the only way to structure this whole thing is a profit share. Right. So they're on a profit share. They sit behind expenses, as they say. So they pay out liabilities and and whatever's left, they hit a profit share on.
Sure.
Right. Which is common way of doing business if they're not taking a salaried employee.
Yeah.
Right.
Fine.
So now they're asking for accounting and they're not getting provided accounting.
They got
My
accounting.
G's saying, shut up. You're basically employees.
Don't lie to the
That's
people.
basically what went down.
Don't lie to the people.
The Rory got told
just
to
lied to
stay
the
home.
people.
One sec. Rory got told to stay home. Basically,
He just lied to the people.
The whole thing, that the beef kicked off, apparently, where Rory gets a message that tells him from Joe Budden. He gets a text message that tells him, "Listen, bruv, stay home for the next couple weeks."
Oh, boy.
Which he can do because he's the owner of it.
So that's where these men are kicking off. So they're saying you're not the owner; it's a free man thing.
But that's okay. So can we?
Let me finish, and then it's on to you. I'm wrapping up.
He let
I'm
the
wrapping
defense.
up.
My bad.
So he tells my G, stay home, don't come in today. Yeah. And my guy's like, what the fuck? But he lets it go, yeah, and calls the third co-host and says, I've just got this saucy message from Joe. He says to stay home. I replied with a question mark. He replied with an exclamation mark, basically. So he's like, fuck it, I'm not going in.
Okay.
So his boy, the other co-host,
Okay.
who's actually really Joe's boy,
Okay.
yeah, goes to check Joe.
Okay.
What's going on, bruv? I heard you told this brother to stay home, rah. Joe Budden tells him, listen, fam, this is none of your business, my G.
Oh, boy.
Like, on more boss-like shit, basically.
Ross.
Tries to hit him with that.
Tommy's embellishing
Facts.
a little bit.
Facts, though. These are facts.
Tommy's
They've
embellishing
spoken
a little
about
bit.
it.
Tommy's
He said, everything I've said is facts.
Okay, all right, hold
That's
on,
not
hold on.
facts.
So
That's not
then,
facts.
wait. This
You
is where
said
the
you
issue...
Motherfucker, you said you are done.
This is where the issue
Can I
comes, right?
speak?
This is where the issue comes, right? The issue comes where these three bros thought they were part owned. These two guys thought they were part owners, and Joe thought he was the boss.
Okay.
basically.
Okay.
That's it.
Is the boss. He has the right to tell them to not come in because he runs the show.
But that's why they
And
bounce, they
when
don't think
you
so.
focusing on the fact that he said to Maul, this podcast has nothing to do with you, I think is a bit disingenuous. And a lot of people did this. Maul focused on it a lot. When the reality is, we've all got into an argument with our friends where we've said stuff that we don't mean.
Yeah, but he's back. He's doubling down.
No, him saying to Maul,
Not
this
of course.
hang on. Him saying to Maul, this podcast has nothing to do with you, is purely an emotional response. Purely.
Sounds like mad chat.
It doesn't make sense any other way because
No, it does make sense.
no, it doesn't.
You can't have it both ways.
What do you mean?
You can't say he's the boss, so can make executive decisions.
No, but you can have it both ways in this particular instance because whether we like it or not, he has the right to say what he said.
But they don't
But
believe
listen
so.
to me.
That's why they left.
But then why don't they sue him? If they
That's going
let me
down.
ask Johnny a question.
That's literally going
no,
down.
it's not. Let me ask Johnny
Can
a
I-
question.
can I
Let me
just
ask
ask-
you a question before you ask a question, bro. Sorry.
Okay.
Do you think it's normal that these guys were part owners of this podcast and didn't have access to anything other than their salary? Do you think that's normal?
Okay. So if they are part
You haven't got any
owners-
questions before you adjudicate.
No, I am.
No questions.
I
we
am-
did quite a good job there.
Yeah.
Explaining
I
everything.
am the Supreme
Quick
Court.
verdict, then we can talk about friends and business.
I am the Supreme Court. If they are part owners, then they have rights to the data. If they are not part owners, which is my understanding of this topic, they are not part owners. They have a profit share with Joe Budden, but they're not owners of the IP or the brand. It's his podcast. Then they are employees of him.
The mistake that they said that they made, right, is that obviously Joe Budden was the big dog, as we're saying. He was the A side of this thing, right? He also got the biggest share of the revenue.
Yeah.
So I think for too long, they let him, his business manager, and the guys just do everything, basically. So for the first couple of years, they turned up, they did a bit of chat, they might have got 1-2 deals here and there for sponsorship or whatever, and not much else, basically.
Because there wasn't much money in it at the start.
Who knows?
No, there wasn't, bro. I've been there for the whole journey. They don't like ads, and they were very, very careful with the sponsorships they took on.
Joe specifically didn't want any ads.
There's not money in podcasting until you hit a certain point, or if somebody wants to pay you. So Joe said there was only actually one deal in which this profit agreement thing was actually relevant. So again, we can say that Joe, and he's admitted himself, his communication wasn't the best. Maybe he should have clarified a few things. But one thing that is absolutely... One second. One thing that's also very, very clear about the other co-hosts is that they have always said that we allow our lawyers and our accountants to talk so that we as friends don't have to. So...
But that was too late.
No, they said this years ago when they were on the road and on tour. Somebody from the crowd on one of their live shows asked them, how do they mix business and friendship? And they said, we don't talk about it. We let our lawyers and managers and accountants talk about it. So at what point do we say that a 39-year-old Maul and a 30-year-old Rory do have to ensure that, yes, we are friends, we are boys. Certain allowances will occur over time, but for the most part, there has to be a legal framework by which we know how to operate. We can't blame Joe entirely. We're talking about grown fucking men at the end of the day.
So I'm going to wrap this section up because you two are going to be here for hours. But my final judgment is that, morally speaking, Joe has fucked them. I don't think either of you are in dispute that Joe has fucked them. From the information I have available to me, I don't think he's wrong legally or in a business sense to do so.
Business and friendship.
Yeah. What are the takeaways?
As Biggie said, keep your family and your business completely separated.
Nah, I don't know if I agree with that.
How do you avoid these situations if you're like boys, though? Is it just, as I said, like, is it just a matter of Joe being or friends being the person who is the owner, if there is that dynamic in a group of friends, being clearer, or does it fall on the other contract holders to be on top of their business a little bit more?
First, I think it's between friends, and obviously these guys were at one point quite close. I think there were kind of a lot of like unsaid things, basically. There was a lot of like understood but unsaid. And I think that kind of gray area leads to issues down the road, right? So you're better off speaking 100%. In the moment rather than being like, yeah, we're boys, we'll figure this shit out.
There should just probably be no gray areas.
Exactly. So it should be straight off, like, so that's the first thing, I think.
Be clear, especially if you're boys, you can be clear with each other, right? There's no ambiguity. It shouldn't be.
The second thing is, I think Joe talks a lot about psychoanalyzing your friends. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And I think
that sounds very Jewish.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me with that is if you have a good understanding on the nature of your friendship and the nature of that person you're friends with, you should have seen this coming with someone like Joe. Because Charlemagne's been telling us this is coming. These men have been telling us. These guys have been fucking and torching every contract he's ever had.
Why do people keep
He's
talking?
never respected a contract, right? Like literally 18 months ago, before he fucked off his friends, he was telling the world Spotify is a piece of shit.
Bro.
Before that, he was gunning out Jay-Z.
He's a
for
rat.
telling him so what.
He's a rat.
Before that, he's basically tortured every relationship, and these men should have seen this coming.
Tommy.
They should have known their friend.
Tommy.
That's basically what I'm saying.
But I just personally think that like he is still on a journey and he's still building out his team. He's gone from being a individual contributor in some sorts, like just I'm the artist, I release music, to being a business owner in a world, a podcast world, which is largely undefined still. Like it's not regulated in any way. We don't really know how this works, and unless you are,
we know how to deal with people.
Unless you are taking Spotify money and selling off your rights and all this other stuff and just getting that cash and then disseminating it like routinely, there are things that are a little bit more unknown, check to check, week to week, especially in the year of a pandemic. He wanted to get these guys on a salary officially. They weren't up for that. Maybe he should have seen this coming as well. But ultimately, I think I can't remove myself from this view that as the owner, he can act the way he acted. Is it the most desirable behavior? Absolutely not.
But he's not the owner.
He is the owner
at that time, right? So at
He's
that
the
time,
owner,
they weren't
bro.
under the understanding that he was the owner. That's why they reacted so badly when he told them to stay home.
The last thing I'm going to say.
Do your research, listeners, and then hit us back.
The last thing I'm
And
going to say.
pick your friends carefully with whom you go into business with.
And who you do a podcast with. But a profit share is not ownership.
Where to now, man? What the fuck do you guys want to talk about? What's been going on? Bill Gates. Woo!
Or more music.
I swear.
Oddy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's really upsetting.
Why?
No, this is a quick one. Big up Russ Millions. He hit number 1. First drill track to hit number 1 on the UK national charts.
Come on. And can I give a special shout out? Can I give a special shout out to my boy Asher, who's the A&R at Atlantic Records, and got them man up to the top of the charts. Yeah.
Is that a new thing?
Asher from Route 73. Man, I'm always big at my people's them.
Is he at Atlantic?
Yeah.
Since when?
From day.
I didn't know
that's the day job. That's the day job.
Feel you.
Route 73 is the passion.
All right, shout out Asher. Congrats to the family.
Congrats
to the family. I fucking love that song. It's an absolute banger and it's mad hooky.
I got
Unless,
more
of
than a
course.
mil in savings.
Is that the one that She Wanna Be With a Geezer? Is that song? Is that a different one?
That's the remix.
Okay.
Unless, of course, you're the Daily Mail.
Oh boy.
The Daily Fail. Who obviously ran a headline, backhanded in their acknowledgement of this drill number 1.
Honestly,
Actually, can I pause you? Can I pause you? Johnny's quite good at this. Do you want to guess the headline that the Daily Mail ran when this tune got to number 1?
Was it something about celebrating degradation of women or
No.
promoting violence?
No.
Or
Oh, yes. Well, yes.
Yeah, promoting violence.
generally
You're on the right track.
something about black culture in a negative image?
Try to find like short words that rhyme. I guess.
They referred to it in their headline as the sound of murder.
Tremendous.
Beep, 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 beep.
So there was an interesting discussion to have around that song making number 1. There's been a whole discussion on Twitter about that Daily Mail headline. People have, and in the same sense that people have been more attacking of Israel Palestine, people have been more attacking of the Daily Mail this time in only highlighting the negative aspects of black culture. There's been an interesting discussion because
that's not an interesting discussion.
Yeah, it's
like
also quite heavy.
They're gonna
everything
do.
we discussed is
They're
also
gonna
quite
do what
heavy.
they're gonna do. Nobody gives a fuck. I just
Haters
laugh.
gonna hate.
I laugh at it now.
Haters gonna hate.
I laugh at it now.
But I get what you're saying.
Well,
It'll be a heavy.
Fuck 'em.
Well, the point was like it was Carla was kicking off on Twitter saying like we'll cut this out obviously if you don't want to record it, but the point Carla was saying stuff along the lines of why is it actually like there is an overrepresentation of black students at universities and there is an overrepresentation of black people in higher academia. Caribbean countries have higher standards of living than most of Asia, let alone bits of Europe as well. Why are these not expressions of black culture? Why is black overrepresentation in sports not black culture? But why is supposedly aggressive music, which originates in countries with high standards of living, representation of black culture, and this isn't?
Because they don't like.
Beep, 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 beep. But that's what it is. Haters gonna hate. They don't like the black people, the immigrants who are coming taking people's jobs and all the rest of it, right? But you're right. It is a good, bit larger conversation to have, but ultimately it's also quite heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, for my peace, tranquility, serenity, sanity, I try to avoid Daily Mail. Full stop. But then things get thrown to you, whatever. Shade Borough will post something, whatever it may be. And then you're just reminded of why you have to ensure that in no way, shape or form, directly or indirectly, should your money transfer from your wallet to the people at the Daily Mail. Never, ever in life.
Don't click them ads because they get paid off that.
Never click. No matter how fucking addictive that little sidebar with all the hot goss stories may be, yeah?
Don't do it.
Don't fall into the hole. Move away from the lights, man.
Anyway, good luck editing that bit because that's going to be...
Yeah, you totally fucked me on that.
Fucked you there.
You fucked me.
Sorry.
But no, what a week for Bill Gates, right? We were out here celebrating his divorce, celebrating probably the wrong word. But, you know, the idea of him, Jeff, Johnny, Mandem, Chet, Hot Boy Summer.
White boy somewhere out here.
Yeah, that too. But then shit went south for the brother. It started with him having to pay $3 billion worth of shares to Melinda in what is probably going to be the first phase of payouts in this. What is
The first tranche.
the first tranche, right, of payouts in what is going to be.
Say that again, please.
Tranche.
Excellent.
I said it the right way, right?
I don't think that's right in either English or French, but carry on.
How'd you say it then, bro?
Tranche.
Tranche. Shut up. Anyway,
Do they use the word tranche when describing anything but money?
I like the word tranche, and they should use it more.
They don't. They,
Buckets of cash.
For
I
the,
don't even-
the
I don't
next tranche of this podcast is Bill Gates giving away money.
I'm not sure they even say that in French. You say souche.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, when you're speaking about like bonds and shit. Yeah, you say it.
this is
First
really.
tranche, coupon payment, whatever.
But yeah, as I was saying, for the third time,
Sorry.
I beg.
Moving all Joe Budden out here.
It's true. You might.
I'm
be
just
asked,
trying to talk about Bill Gates' divorce.
You might
and
be asked
other
to stay
shit.
home.
Here you are. You got one over 30 black geese and one under 30 white.
Hey,
boy.
my G, do me a favor. Can you
Bro.
just stay home
Can you
next
stay
week?
home
yeah?
this week?
Bro, if we're ever lucky enough to get onto the contractual side of things, I can promise you guys there will be no grey areas.
You might
If
not
Joe
get
Budden,
shit.
if Joe Budden
You might
taught
not
us
get
anything, if Joe Budden taught us anything, that should have already been done.
Yeah.
Basically, What do you mean, when we get to it, that was the chat Joe Budden gave him, bro. He
sorry.
gave him that chat. He was like, yeah, don't worry, my G.
This guy just showing up a couple of weeks talking about that
He was like, my guys.
Tommy's trying to hot man out. Why am I
He's moving
why-
on.
why-
Eddie.
Why am I getting hot
What
under the
have you
fucking
done for
collar
me
here?
lately?
Fucking
I'm an American woman now, Eddie.
So this isn't all that interesting, but anyway, I'm going to try this for the fourth time. Bill Gates had to give to his wife.
Do you know what's mad this week?
Oh, for fuck's sake, bro. For fuck's sake. I mean, we don't have to talk about this.
It's also a little
Like,
juice that we're juicing.
Yeah, it's not.
That's
It's
probably
not. We
why.
don't have to talk about it.
No, come on then. Bill Gates.
No, it's fine.
Uncle Bill for the
No,
fourth
it's fine.
time.
It's
I'm also
fine.
surprised that the first tranche is only 3 billion.
I think it's shares. So first 3 billion is in shares, and then I guess they're going to go through the rest of it. But not only that, but in the last couple of weeks, there have been more and more stories about some of the reasons behind the divorce. You may have heard that things began to disintegrate marriage-wise when Melinda found out that there was an association between her husband then and Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
Think of that what you will. I won't dwell.
It's not kosher.
What then came thereafter were claims about how things were going down at Microsoft with regards to sexual harassment and toxicity in the workplace. Not only were claims coming out left, right, and center about this unsettling, dangerous environment under his rule, but there were also claims directed at him for his alleged pursuit of women he employed. In fact, the kitchen got so hot that I read an article today that he reportedly admitted to an extramarital affair with one of his employees.
So wasn't there an agreement where he was like he was allowed to go and meet his ex?
Yeah, but
And-
this is somebody else because
We talked about that on the last pod, I think.
Oh, we did.
Yeah,
Bill
I-
Gates, basically, Bill
Yo.
Gates is just slinging dick
Should
all
I-
over Silicon Valley.
and it leads me on to my next question, bro. I'm on crowd, so I'm just going to ask you, man. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is say yes or no.
Okay.
Do not substantiate it.
Okay.
Is it possible to be a faithful billionaire in a world full of city girls and temptresses?
Oh boy.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes or no?
Yeah.
Nah.
Tommy can
I think
relate.
it's a larger question.
Nah.
I think it's a larger. I mean, like, I don't even know if it's even like worth being faithful when you're a billionaire.
Shit, we're podding now. Oh shit.
When you got that kind of optionality,
Oh shit.
Oh,
Johnny is hands in head right now.
we've got like listen to the optionality that these men have got. Yeah, like we're talking about multiple citizenships. Yeah, you've got 3-4 passports because obviously one is too much of a risk. Yeah, a la Abramovich.
Yes.
And co. Yeah.
Yes.
You've got what you're telling me you can have optionality in everything in life except your partner, basically.
Feel you, bro.
But your partner is probably the only genuine, real emotional connection that you have.
Bruv,
by
you
the time
sound
you're
so
a billionaire.
wet. You sound so wet.
No, because all, like, you can't really trust
Why is he
That
talking
kind
about
of
all this
that kind of
stuff?
attitude doesn't get you to $1 billion.
Yes. Yes. But also, it also doesn't.
She's got to be loving and emotionally
No,
in
but it
tune
also-
with
the
you.
only one that you
No,
can
bro.
trust.
It also doesn't lose you.
I just said city girls and temptresses.
This approach also doesn't
Like
lose
man
you.
hasn't been watching Blue Therapy.
yeah.
This also doesn't lose you $50 billion in a divorce. So I'm gonna hold tight to my being.
Oh, yeah,
But
you can let that
you
go
can
now.
afford that. It's
Yeah,
fine.
you can afford that.
It's okay. It's okay. No, but true say. By the time you're a billionaire, like you have no real friends left.
Yeah.
You have none. You have no genuine emotional connection. Everyone that you ever speak to is exploitative.
That's why you're looking to spud Epstein at parties, isn't it? Oh, what's going on, man?
It's horrible, isn't it?
Awful. But this is the point. Like you kind of think that like your missus is the only real person that you're connected to.
Bullshit. Louis Saha came out sometime last week, and
Yeah.
Louis Saha was like, "There's been a mad spate of footballers' wives leaving them after their playing career is done."
Yeah.
And he was like, "This marriage thing's a hustle because every footballer's wife is around when you're making the P and you're the in-demand guy and you're going to the premiere here and rah rah rah.
Yeah.
The minute you retire and you got a broke up knee or whatever, she's gone with half your shit, basically, right?" So
Louis
let's
Saha.
not exactly. So let's not.
Tottenham legend.
I was gonna say just like
So,
spitting wisdom.
It's only fair to like also think, all right, she may be unaffected by the 50 billion that you've racked up in 20 years, but the likelihood is people change. She'll change, you'll change, everyone changes, basically.
Johnny is the faithful billionaire. What can I say? Sounds like a show on E.
I think that's a billionaire with a small b.
Yeah. Good Jewish boy. It's my personal brand.
Yeah. Look, man, good luck, Bill. Things are going a bit weird for you at the moment.
You have been uninvited to a White Boy Summer.
Yeah, I think this takes you off the list.
It does. You can't be friends with a famous criminal and
Yes.
get invited
But
to White
was
Boy
he
Summer.
Problematic,
that's
man.
haram. You
What,
can't
Epstein?
No, he's not.
But he's friends with him, yeah?
Yeah, he was
I don't
chilling
know if he
with
was
him.
friends. Was he actually? Is that
Yeah,
verified?
there's pictures of them chilling at
they were
parties and
chilling. That's when Melinda was like, nah.
Yeah,
B.
bro.
There's pictures of Epstein together.
Bruv, there's bad pictures. Her PR team have been on a fucking madness the last 2
What,
weeks.
hotting him
bruv.
up,
Hotting
basically?
this. Every
Oh,
leak has been coming out the last 2 weeks. It's obviously the lawyer and the PR team. It's mad
I
chat.
didn't know that. I didn't know him and Epstein were
Codees.
Codees.
Yeah, Codees.
I need to know. I need to know the story. We're not doing this now. I need to know what connects this man with all of these people.
Yeah,
like
true.
every Jeffrey Epstein documentary you see is dead because it gives you fucking nothing in terms of actual information. I need to know.
My
like,
G was the Pied Piper,
but bro, like he was everywhere
Yeah,
at every corner of fucking society, every corner. Royals, fucking tech entrepreneurs, billionaire. Like he was
they're all
everywhere.
Presidents.
They're all
Is he like the key to the fucking secret of an underworld full of as you say?
He's the whisperer.
So,
I thought you had that one.
yeah. IG, if you're following Johnny, you might have seen him like, shout out man like Michael.
Come on. OG from day.
Swear down, doing a little boxing in the East London area,
Come
right?
on.
I thought, let's take this advantage to first ask Johnny, who are you afraid of? Why are you boxing now? Can I help you? Do you need added assistance
Wait a
ends?
minute. There's a theme here.
What?
So, firstly, who you're afraid of, i.e., what the boxing.
Yeah.
And earlier, the face recognition when it came to the WhatsApp.
Oh. Yeah.
What are you hiding
What's going
and
on,
who
Johnny?
you're afraid of.
Johnny,
bruv.
what's going on?
This is going to be an intervention.
So the boxing is because I'm anticipating contractual issues later down the road
Man's gonna hot me up.
with this podcast.
But as we've
If you touch this pretty face of mine with your fist, you won't even get a percentage share, buddy.
1%.
You're getting nothing.
I'll take that, going by how this episode's gone.
Who are you afraid of?
No, I'm just trying
Who
to
have
get
you
fit. I'm
upset?
on my weight loss race. That's what's up. It's a good way to get fit, to do boxing. And I've always liked punching Mike in the face. So this is a good opportunity to express that passion.
I feel you. Why is boxing so shit right now, buddy?
Oh boy, how long have I got?
Not long, by the way.
Not long.
joke's
Okay.
But why is it so shit? I'm going to name a few things you're going to tell me. Why is boxing in a place right now where we can't, as viewers, see the potential best heavyweight title bout of our generation in AJ versus Fury because of all of this political bullshit around Deontay Wilder?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we're having to put up with bollocks in the form of like Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, and now it's Floyd Mayweather versus a fucking YouTuber. And like, what is happening that is transpiring in boxing that's kind of making it this sort of UFC, WWE, overly entertaining but largely ridiculous bastardization of a very traditional, great
there's
sport?
Just before Johnny
the
kicks
fuck?
off, I will say this is also the best boxing has ever been in like 10 years.
But that's from a low point, bro.
It is shit. It's 100% shit. I don't back boxing at all. It's shit. But it is the best it's been for a minute. And it's still shit.
Yeah.
So there's a few things. One is that it's a proper bent sport, like Ted Hastings, AC12 things. Don't need to go in and clean the thing up. It's all completely
What's
bent.
that, man? What do you say again?
Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and the wee donkey. So it's completely bent sport, and that doesn't help because it ruins the spectacle and big fights. We saw Canelo against Golovkin, 2 robberies, whatever. The larger point is that basically Floyd Mayweather broke boxing. And what I mean by that is that everyone is now obsessed with protecting their O.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks that they can be a legend of the sport without going undefeated, which means the best don't want to fight the best.
That's why I fuck with AJ, by the way.
In the UFC, nobody gives a shit. If you lose a fight, you come back and you either beat the guy up another day, you get another go, or you fight someone else and you work your way back up the rankings.
Yeah.
The thing about boxing is that aside from everyone being obsessed with losing their O record, there are multiple belts. And because the UFC is effectively a single belt, a single organization, it reduces the politics. It's a one-party state, right? Boxing is a full-party entity.
Yeah.
And so all these different belts have got their own agendas, their own champions, their own fighters. They all want to maximize their own money, and they're happy to fuck the fans because ultimately they think that their belt is the one. They think that it protects their franchise in the shorter term to put their guy to fight people to spend, regardless of what's happening elsewhere, which is what's happening with the WBC over Fury having to fight Wilder for a 3rd time. Nobody wants to fucking see that.
Nobody wants it.
Over AJ. Nobody wants that. Why is boxing shit? 1, because it's bent. 2, because the money's in the wrong place. And 3, because everyone's obsessed with going undefeated. And because they're passies and the judges and the associations are totally corrupt, we don't get good fights. And if this keeps happening, we as a sport will lose out to the UFC, which is inconceivable because boxing's infinitely better than
Bro, I can't watch UFC. I'm not going to lie. I can't watch it. I think it's so brutal.
UFC's
like,
dope.
I can't do it, bro.
It's cool. It's
The reason I don't watch boxing anymore is because I watch UFC, basically.
So
much more entertaining.
I disagree.
Firstly, it's there's more action. Firstly,
around the sport or the sport in the ring.
Guys just hug each other for 3 minutes around. Guys will just hug each other for 3 minutes around. Sometimes.
In UFC.
Yeah, there's a submission fight. Like I don't know shit about jiu-jitsu, fam. I don't care if you've got man in a behind hug. I want to see guys thumping each other in the face.
Yeah, exactly. You say that as if boxing gives you that. Boxing doesn't give you that. What boxing gives you is some brother who turns up, who goes 15 fights, 20 fights undefeated.
But I think Johnny's point is right. I think that was only Mayweather, man.
Nah, all of them, right? They all go, look at Tommy Fury even right now,
to an extent,
they
Tyson
all go
Fury.
15.
Tommy from Love Island.
Yeah. Like he's trying to get a fight with Jake Paul.
Is he seriously boxing?
Frank Warren's got him fighting bums to build up his record.
No, but it's all the same. Don't say Frank
padding.
Warren's got him. Every single boxer pads their stats, right? They all start
on the come up, sure,
to build confidence, rah. The first 15, 20 fights are against semi-pro man, basically. And then before you know it, they're like, yeah, this guy's super important. He's 20-0, but he's fought basically 20 bricklayers, basically, right? You'll never catch that happening in the UFC.
Shout out Max.
You'll never catch that happening in the UFC.
Yeah.
There you'll find top-level guys fighting top-level guys, partly because they're being exploited. They're part of a league.
Entirely being exploited.
They're part of a league. They're not making the same kind of money that the boxers are, et cetera, et cetera. They're almost being forced to fight each other.
Yeah.
Almost. Not quite, but kind of. In a more league-like format.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's no way both the fanfare ahead of the fight and the fight itself is definitely more entertaining in the UFC.
You cannot transition from amateur to professional without those padding fights. It's different to UFC.
So once you've gone professional, you're still padding.
You have to pad for the first 10 to 15 fights, otherwise you don't know how to box.
Once you've gone pro.
Yes, bro.
Exactly. So
it's
that's
a different sport.
So why should I pay for that pay-per-view then when I know you're going to knock me out?
Pay-per-view. Wait until they're 20-0.
Exactly. So who's going to pay for that then?
I don't know if we see many of those early fights anyway. Like all those fights that AJ did, the 15 or so before he started popping.
It was undercarding.
It was undercarding. So I don't think we as viewers really lost a great deal. But the point I was making about AJ was that I don't think he ever came in and he was on this whole, when I am done, I need to be undefeated. He come in and just was like, I want to be the undisputed. And he lost against Ruiz Jr. and was just like, shit, that's an L. But he went and won it back. And now he's just like, I want to fight the best. Full stop.
Yeah, it's all
so
chat, though.
Back to Johnny's point, maybe Floyd, maybe the problem, ironically, is
it's Floyd. He broke boxing.
Even though he is, I think, and I don't know what your view is, I think he's one of the greatest of all time.
He's the best ever.
Exactly.
Yeah, no
but
doubt.
yeah, in being so defensively genius for the back end of his career, unknowing to him, he's changed the game, unfortunately.
Well, everyone's paranoid about the O.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to let the O go.
It's mad.
That's broken boxing.
Man, some people just need to get smacked up, bruv. That's calm, innit?
Come Stonebridge Gardens, 7 o'clock.
I swear I'm coming. I swear I'm coming. I will come. I will come. Why you want to tell me up, bruv? You said that a couple of times. This is
exactly what happened to Joe Budden.
This is what Rory started doing with Joe. Like saying he wants to punch him up every fucking week.
He invited him to his hands.
Are you happy? Are you happy on this kid and terribly?
We'll discuss.
It's also interesting because the dynamic, the demographics are similar as well. Because Rory's the only white boy on that podcast.
Yeah, and Joe Budden also wears shit hats.
Jeez.
I don't wear shit hats.
Fedoras and thing.
I don't own a fedora.
No?
I own like a
Not yet.
Peaky Blinder flat cap, 5-panel.
Oh, no.
I do own some beanies and I wear them
Too often.
Not covering my ears because I'm stylish like that.
We just have to give you sufficient time.
I own a couple of bucket caps. They're my pride and joy. And my head has always been too wham for actual caps.
Can we move on,
anybody
please?
who has a size 8 snapback cap that I can buy off you, Alibaba, Amazon, let me know because I'm struggling with not being able to wear caps for all of my life.
You see him,
Johnny, I'll tell you something. Yeah, at the beginning of the Joe Budden podcast, he didn't have a fedora either.
Oh boy.
It's once he started siphoning off that
Yes.
cash.
You got fedora money.
That
It's just
fedora
rude.
money came through.
Speaking of money, I got a bone to pick.
Oh, you do?
It's people like us. People like us from the ends.
Okay.
We are kind of the exception, but I'm just going to go on this monologue anyway. I feel like people from the ends, we all follow each other. And what I mean by that is we follow each other to the same places. We do the same things. Same restaurants, same holiday destinations. And now we even invest in the same shit.
Oh boy.
Everyone from the ends, they wanted the Balenciagas, the ones that look like socks. They all wanted a Birkin bag when
for the
Saweetie was
babes.
talking that shit. Now it's Gucci bags and Chanel, Dior and all that shit. They all want to go Afro Nation
Who doesn't?
because, you know,
My voice, I was so excited to say it, my voice broke.
thing is about
Who doesn't?
leaving your ends to go on a holiday in a really nice place is it's just not complete unless you see everybody from home.
Mediterranean sea and that.
They all want to have Salt Bay.
Carnival on road.
They all want to have Salt Bay feeding them meat, especially Tommy. They all think Hakkasan is a rite of passage.
Dead chat.
And now everybody apparently is a fucking cryptocurrency trader.
Yeah, it's mad. It's mad.
Now, I don't want to sound off. I'm not above anybody. Tutus, I don't actually fucking get it. So I could trade that shit if I tried. And big up all the people who have been in the game for a while. But it's almost as if somebody like flung up like a Batman sign in the sky from like Elephant and Castle or something. And just said, so again, there's money to be made over here. Put all of your savings and that of your chilling and invest in Ripple. Doggy coin.
Whoa, hold on. What? Say that again?
Doggy coin.
That's surely not how it's pronounced.
How do you
He's
say it?
going for Doge.
It's Doge.
Is it Doge?
Dogecoin.
I mean, I told you, man, I'm not about this. Like
Same though.
Man said doggy coin, fam.
Ethereum,
Subscribe to Pornhub and that.
Litecoin. Yeah.
We should also just say that this is not financial advice.
Yes.
Like what? I mean,
I think we just have to throw that out there.
no, we do.
Disclaimers and that.
No, we do. We were going to do a couple of disclaimers at the end of this, but
Don't
like,
take financial advice from a fucking podcast.
yeah, no, please don't. Please don't. And then obviously this week there was a crash
Yes.
in the market.
Yes.
A small one.
Now, this was caused by two main things: China and Elon. For the background, Bitcoin's price fell about 30% after Chinese regulators announced that they were planning on banning banks and payment firms from using cryptocurrencies.
Bad rattled drug dealers in my DMs asking me what they should do.
And that was a week after Elon Musk, who, for all of his earlier Bitcoin hyping, which drove the market absolutely fucking crazy, suspended plans to allow customers to pay for Teslas in Bitcoin.
Pump and dump king.
He also was involved in a Twitter conversation. I think he released a statement where he said that he was essentially pulling back from his involvement in Bitcoin because of the environmental factors involved with mining this shit.
That's right.
And if you don't know what I mean, research it, goddammit. There is an environmental element to trading these currencies.
As Getz once told Bashi, do your research.
Do your research.
Great chat.
I was a bad man in jail.
Get me.
Ask Carlos.
Where's Carlos? Right. And
I love Samuel L. Jackson.
And when that happened, everybody kind of lost their shit. Now, Chunks is clearly richer than me because he put out a tweet which pinged my heart. down 247k in a day.
Did you not see Nico's tweet?
Who?
Nico, the guy who ran for mayor, his boy,
NDL.
No.
NDL.
What did he say?
He lost 1.8 million the same day.
Sweet Jesus Christ of Nazareth.
But to be fair, we've been on a massive bull run, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of that money is going to be money they made. Like things were doubling in price fucking every day, basically. Different coins were doubling. People were making ridiculous amounts of money. So I can't believe all of that loss is pure loss.
It's mark to market
paper
loss.
gains.
It's mark to market.
Exactly.
This crypto
A
shit,
correction.
I'm gonna jump in here and just say all this crypto shit is fucking pointless. It's gonna end up at zero one day. I'm a massive seller of it. I think it's all fucking pointless. Has no intrinsic value. It might have some
Bullshit.
extrinsic value.
Ooh.
If you want to put your money into it, do that. This crypto thing, stay out of it. It's fucking wild.
What I love about Tommy B on this podcast the most is that he spends all of the time, when he's not speaking, stroking the fuck out of his moustache.
Yes.
It's
Wait until you guys see this moustache.
Like a 19th century French aristocrat.
It occurred to me you don't know what this motherfucker looks like.
Yes.
Wait until you see this moustache.
It's like V for Vendetta with a tan.
Oh my God.
gonna get cleaned up soon.
But you disagree with Johnny, right?
Yeah, I mostly generally on principle.
In life.
Just because.
Just on principle.
Just why not?
I think I think it's difficult to say it's all bullshit. Look, I'm not here to like tell anyone what's what, like in the crypto world and whatever. But ultimately, if you want to try to understand cryptocurrencies from a super macro level, all you're doing essentially is investing in different projects, in different ideas. It's like you being, or the way I like to think about it is you're like a walking venture capitalist, basically. It's a kind of democratization of the funding process for startups, right? That's the way I like to think about it, right? So there are tons, each coin that's out there, there'll be thousands of coins. Each coin represents a project, basically, right? So someone not too dissimilar to us or to anyone who's listening or to anyone who lives next door to you has come up with an idea and then thought, rather than going to the private markets, such as other vent caps and angel investors and crowdsourcing and all the rest of it, I'll access liquidity for my startup, for my idea, through cryptocurrencies. So I first came about this in, like, really in earnest in 2016 when there was a big bubble going.
Yeah.
And I was in Dubai at the time, and every conversation you'd have is about some ICO, which is essentially the equivalent of an IPO, right?
Initial coin offering.
An initial coin offering. Oh, yeah. Then there was this huge bear market that ran for like 3 years, right? So for like from 2016, 2017, things were going swimmingly, massive bull market till things fell off a cliff, basically. And for like a 2 or 3 year period, it was just the wilderness where people weren't making money. Projects were trading in the same kind of range. And now we're back to being in a bull market, right? And it's kind of reminded me of The Big Short, you know, the film, right? When everyone and your mother is talking to you about cryptocurrencies, when you're jumping in a car and you're listening to the radio and they're talking about cryptos, or you're jumping in a cab and the Uber driver's talking to you about cryptos or whatever, that they're telltale signs that you're in a bubble.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not saying, when I said bullshit to what Johnny said, firstly, of course, it was on principle, but also
On site.
Yeah, just but also because it might not make you money in I don't believe you may not make money on it in the short run, but in the long run, the nature of some of these projects are game changing, basically. So I'd highly recommend
I feel you.
looking into it further. But do your
This is
research. Don't just listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube video, have a mate tell you, this coin, and then fucking sink tons of cash into it.
Yeah.
Only invest money that you can afford to lose.
Amen.
Firstly. But secondly, vet the projects. Find shit that you're interested in. There's some really cool projects that you will be passionate about, right?
Yeah. If you believe in it. Sorry, bro, carry on.
Yeah, whether it's in the tech space, in the media space, in the philanthropy space, there are projects across sectors, right?
Yeah.
So find something that you're interested in,
Yeah.
find something you believe in, and invest the
that's
amount of
it,
money
bro.
that's small.
If you believe in it, buy low, sell high. Yes, I mean, I get it. That's a concept. But if you believe in it, do some research. Set up a fucking dummy portfolio. Like, do something that actually makes sense as you research and as you grow your conviction in something. Investing is a long game. I do know why people think otherwise, because this last year's been a bit crazy since the crash of March of last year. But investment has always been a long play. So be intelligent. Speaking of Big Short, just because you mentioned it, I didn't expect you to. That guy, the guy who Christian Bale played, Michael Burry, who owns that hedge fund or whatever it is, have bet like 500 million against Tesla as well recently.
Oh, wow.
Which is going to be quite interesting.
Shit ton of their corporate treasuries in Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So if that goes south, then they've got no liquidity left.
Yeah. So again, people, we are just here to
crypto's trash.
Sprinkle.
Crypto's trash. The reason that this whole China thing's come about is because the Chinese Communist Party are so pissed that their digital yuan hasn't kicked off properly. So they're deeply regulating cryptocurrencies trading in their own country. So what are you going to do? Have you got more money than the fucking Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah,
no, you don't.
That's a bit dodgy because they've been banning crypto every year since 2017. In 2017, they banned it. In 2018, they banned it. In 2019, they banned it. In 2020.
But they can make it tighter and tighter. And that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do. Anyway, crypto's trash. You man can do your thing, innit?
Bro, it's not me.
I
told you I don't even know it. I don't even know it. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know it.
The reason
It's
I
trash.
disappear...
Me, I do stocks. I do stocks.
And shares.
Simple stocks and vibes.
Oh, boy. So I know Rich likes to do his clean-cut edits when we're segueing topics. I'm not going to let him.
No, we don't always have to, you know. Like.
But we've just taken a piss break. And him and Tommy spent 20 minutes arguing about the Joe Budden podcast.
It's important.
So in the spirit of fucking people, we are moving to the relationship advice segment
Lovely.
of the podcast. That was a good segue.
Back again by popular demand.
By popular demand. And we have ourselves quite a juicy one. So I put the appeal out there for submissions, and the people them did not fail.
Ooh.
The people them did not fail.
Big up yous.
As always,
They never fail us.
As always, the person presenting the scenario has not forewarned the other two of this situation. They do not know what's coming.
Oh, shit.
Let's get into it.
Edge of my seat.
I've been seeing a guy for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
We met on Hinge. Classic. We've been going all right, quite into each other, but I'm quite shy about engaging. I've had a couple bad experiences with relationships, and although I like this guy, I'm quite tentative about throwing myself in the deep end again. It's a girl,
Okay.
the submitter, for the record.
Okay.
When we were doing the whole meeting each other for the first time thing, we discussed how many sexual partners each of us have had.
Oh, rabbit hole.
I have had 2 previous boyfriends, and they are the only 2 people that I have had sex with. He told me at the time that he had only had sex with 3 people, also his 3 previous relationships.
Do we know how old these people are?
They're my age, they're 28.
Okay.
We went out for a party to celebrate the end of lockdown. We ended up back at a friend's house. Whilst we were there, we got onto the topic of how many partners we'd had. Everyone was drunk. As you can imagine, we were all celebrating the end of lockdown.
Yeah.
During this discussion, he said that he had had 12 sexual partners. I feel like he has betrayed my trust. He said that he had only had 3, and that was part of the reason why I felt close to him. As someone who finds it difficult to get into relationships and who is very sensitive about sex, had I known he had been with so many people, I would not have rushed into a relationship with him. I feel like he has betrayed my trust, and I haven't confronted him about it since the night. I let it go during the party, and I haven't brought it up since. What should I do?
I mean, look.
It's a sticky one.
It's not that sticky at all
one
to
still.
me.
Maybe he meant 3 people on 4 different occasions.
Wow.
Maybe he didn't finish the sentence, and she's being
I like
very
that quick maths.
Quick maths.
I mean, look, I'm not speaking for man, but he may have even said that. She might not have heard it. You know, she might have been like doing something in the kitchen or
What the fuck?
3, and she walks off and like makes some toast on 4 occasions.
Maybe she misheard.
She just misheard, maybe.
No, I think he's quite clear that it was 12 people.
Unless he said like 3 + 9.
Okay.
Also quick maths.
Funks.
Thing is, all right, and I think we've had this conversation before. Maybe not with you guys, but I have this conversation quite a lot. I do not know why there is this obsession with that question being asked very, very early on into relationships. Like body counts and all that stuff. I think it's a very bizarre conversation starter.
You're saying that early on or full stop?
Full stop, really. I don't see the point, especially when you get into like adult age. You have to accept that it ain't virgins out here, bruv, right? Everybody's got a sexual past, or you should expect most people to have a sexual past. So I think this fixation
But do you not expect honesty with that sexual past? I think that's her problem.
I think the reason people often lie about it is because they're asked the question, right? They feel pressured to lower the number because they know what comes with higher numbers in terms of perception, in terms of the view.
So do you feel like he's really the victim here, not her?
I mean, you've taken the words right out of my mouth,
Oh
Johnny.
my days. It's the men's rights segment again, bro.
No, but in all seriousness, he has lied to her.
He's betrayed her trust. And it's only 6
Too
months.
strong.
Can she ask me that?
It's only
What?
6 months in. But what do you bring to the table? It's only 6 months in.
Why is she asking him that?
It's 6 months in. I
think she's using this as an excuse. I think there must be other
Ooh.
things going down because, like, how much of a difference to her it really makes if the number was 3 versus 12? I don't know, because the number 12 isn't that reckless either.
Isn't 12 respectable?
Yeah, it's not a hugely reckless
I think
number.
the point is that he
At 28?
At 28.
Come, bro.
I think the point is that he lied about it and then was brazen in coming out with it at a party.
Drunk word, sober thoughts.
He probably just didn't even remember the number he told her. He's like, oh, shit. I think I said 12 at that date 6 months ago.
Or maybe when he said 12 while drunk, he said divided by 4.
Also, I think we also have to think, the thing that we're forgetting
So it was actually 3.
is we're assuming he's been lying out here. Maybe he was telling the truth. When he spoke to her, the number was 3.
Oh, boy.
And now the number is 12. It's like, maybe he was just saying
My man had a London buses. My man had a
that
London buses approach to sex.
that is hilarious.
Got nothing for years, and then just got it in.
Couple
whilst he's been seeing
295s
this
just
girl.
roll through.
No, that's bleak.
Well, it was 3 back then.
That's it. What do you want from me?
I'm being honest to you. I'm being honest.
That is bleak. Hinges the girl.
See, I think when you say betraying trust, first of all, I don't trust you, motherfucker. I've known you for 6 months. Get the fuck out of my face.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, it's a bit strong, right? Who cares?
Yeah, really
Who
strong.
cares?
Do you not feel she has
It's
a right
also
to
a
be
white
aggrieved?
lie, I think.
She has the right to be aggrieved just because it's a lie, right? And she
But
felt a
where
bit
she's made the point,
embarrassed.
where she's made the point that she wouldn't have rushed things with him had she known his history. I
So
think
what she's
that's
trying
her
to say
problem.
is that she felt comfortable being intimate with him because she thought he was equally inexperienced. Is that
Correct.
what you're saying, basically.
Correct.
Mad.
But
And
then
it turns
all's
out
well
that
that
he's
ends
not.
well, basically, because everything's fine now.
Mad.
What like my man who wasn't in love with the girl and then ended up in love with her after the 2 kids in the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All's well that ends well.
my
Yeah, Johnny.
days.
At least his one was a big deception.
Yeah.
This thing is like a white lie. It's the same way she told him that, you know, she was happy with what she ordered at the date and probably ate off his plate. What? Little white lies. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. He said 3, then the number was 12. If he said 3 and the number was 150, then she has the right to be aggrieved, I think.
Yeah.
If he said 3 and the number was
It's a
12.
quantity number.
I think so.
It's a question of maths, not ethics.
Relativity. It's the question of relativity.
Johnny, what do you think?
I think she's got a right to be aggrieved. I don't want to get.
I think we're in agreement with
Closer to
that.
it than you guys are, right?
Agreed, yes. But then what? What did she do?
So for me,
They're not that aggrieved, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's
But this
not
is-
that much of a...
So
like,
for me, it
it's-
comes down to the tenure and that it's only been 6 months and they met on Hinge. Okay, so she actually doesn't owe anything to this guy.
Yeah.
And they've not been together for very long. And if she feels like she can't trust him going forward, now's a good time to end it. If she can get over the fact that, if she's less
Get
concerned
over
about
the fact.
Hold on. If she's
What?
if she's
We're talking like the my brother's cheated or something.
no, hold on. If
Get
she's
over the fact
Yeah.
that the number was actually 12.
Yeah, no, but because it's important in the context of faithfulness and honesty and your abilities to trust someone.
nothing to do with
If she's more upset by the fact that he's lied to her versus the number of people that he slept with, that's a more fundamental issue. If she
Okay.
can get over the fact that he slept with 12 people and she doesn't give a shit about that, there's maybe something to work on. But you can't have a relationship without trust.
She seems very soggy. Like she then said, no. She then said, right, that after the
soggy
party or after
Oh,
the day,
boy.
the days after, she didn't even address it with him. What kind of a weak personality are we dealing with here?
No,
like
this is a strong woman. She's a nice girl. She is a nice girl. She's a nice girl.
Oh, so you
yeah,
okay.
it's the DMs.
why didn't she bring it up?
because she's not confrontational.
It sounds like she's got a fairly idyllic relationship, if you ask me. Because if this is the biggest problem in the relationship,
She gonna
things
be
are going
alright.
fine.
She gonna be alright.
Things are fine.
Yeah,
Like if she breaks up with him, and then on the hunt for a brer that will tell smaller lies than this one, good luck. Fact. Good luck.
Oh shit!
yeah, like I just
You're not buying this one.
I just think she should confront. She
Okay.
should say, so bruv, where'd them 9 come from?
Yeah. At
Where'd them extra 9 come from?
What time did them
Rude
9
boy?
come
When?
from?
But then she also needs to remember at 28 years old, 12 partners? Probably not crazy.
I think
Probably not.
we should certainly
Yeah.
not
I
discourage.
mean, that's like 1 year. That's like 1 week of uni, like for a certain man by 28. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't go uni. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I
it was
can
crazy,
understand.
Johnny. Mad buns.
cake,
Mad
cake.
adultering. Mad adultering.
What the fuck?
Mad
You're
premarital
both making eye
sex.
contact with me as well while you're talking.
Mad
crap,
bun clapping.
What the fuck?
Fresh
Clap.
as week.
I
What?
beg you, man,
Clap.
divert your eyes.
Fresh as week. Mike, what?
I'm trying to divert my
Bruv.
ears.
Vodka Red Bulls for £1. You're mad, bruv. It only ends one way. I don't even like vodka like that.
Liquid Viagra.
They were £1.
They were. They really, really were.
It was actually £1.
Yeah, bro.
Double or single?
Double.
No way.
At £1, it doesn't matter. You're not asking questions.
Yeah, man.
You're like, oh God, give me 6.
Yeah. Just paint thinner like vodka just with some Red Bull to make it taste
It
better.
wasn't even real Red Bull. It
Do
was
you know what I
like
mean?
some Red
Boost.
Light
Yeah.
thing.
It was 49p boost.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, but for real, person who submitted, look, I understand you've been lied to. That's never nice. That's never nice. However, he could have made a mathematical mistake. You may have misheard his number, right? And ultimately, if he likes you and everything else has been cool, you have to accept that you asking him the question about number of partners is actually potentially quite a triggering question. He felt like he had to impress you. And sometimes people do dumb things and lie when they feel they need to impress people. Is he a good person? If the answer to that is yes, my dear, go and give him the best fellatio of his life and just move on.
You said it twice
Just
in this
move
episode.
on.
I've said the F word twice.
Just
in this
move
episode.
on. You are going to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Agreed. I think
This is
we don't want to
mad chat.
dissuade. We don't want to dissuade future listeners, fandom, from submitting.
Why? What did we do?
Future relationship advice.
What did we do?
This particular
There's no
advice,
we on this one. This is a
we
sole
can
ownership
we can
issue.
swiftly marginalize a little, but it's interesting because you touched on it on a more macro level as to the importance of this question being asked.
What, of the body
Yeah.
count?
Of the body count.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is
Which
it
is-
important to you?
Is it important to me? I think one thing that Abiadi mentioned about age is a serious factor. So it
relevant
may have
factor.
been more important while I was younger, let's say, than it is now.
So are you basically
But
the-
it's still important.
are you-
Don't get me wrong. I'm
are
not.
you-
I'm not out here holding the position that you man might hold, saying it's not important. Basically,
Okay, fair.
I'm
Are
saying
you-
it is still important.
Are you dividing the bodies over the age of 18? Is that the math that you're doing in your head?
No maths like that.
I'm
The
trying to
maths-
calculate how many
The
man
maths
per
would more be about if you really wanted to play maths in this, which is ill-advised.
Yeah.
But if you do want to do
But I'm
maths,
going to do it anyway.
the maths would be the number of relationships divided by the people. right?
Relationships doesn't add up to higher
Of course
body
it does.
count,
So
right?
if
No,
a
because
girl's
with a relationship,
28,
you're
like
not
this
having
girl
casual
28,
sex,
so
right?
this girl's 28,
Yeah.
yeah, the girl who sent in this DM, right?
Yeah.
So she's 28 years old.
Two
Let's say
previous
two
relationships.
previous relationships.
Only had sex with those two people.
Sure. And let's
It's
say
a lie, by the way.
And yeah. and
wow.
let's say these two relationships were both, let's say, 4 years long, right? Then, or 3 years long or some shit like this. Then it doesn't give much scope for peace and 50 other breads, basically, right?
Right.
Whereas if she's 28 and never had a long-term relationship or had 2 long-term relationships that were 6 months old, then the number of 2 is going to be a much smaller number,
Right.
basically, right?
Right.
Because she's had 7 years single and she still hasn't done anything, basically, right? Which I'm not saying is good or bad, but I'm saying in relation to your question, it's not simply just being like how many years above 18 and rah, rah, rah. It's also about if you've had a number of long-term relationships, then it makes sense that your number's going to be
the
lower.
number who you've had sex with lower, obviously.
Exactly, that's my point.
Obviously. Yeah, I don't think anyone disputes that.
Yeah, I've never really cared.
So what you telling?
I've certainly never asked a woman that. And
what
I
are you
never
telling?
would.
What are you telling sis to do? What's the verdict?
Did you not hear me? It involved the F word, as you called it.
Oh, well, give him.
you're
just,
saying-
No, I just
go
think
suck
it's
his
calm.
dick.
Saying it doesn't matter at all. So we have a friend. All right, like this is tough. So let's not name any names, right?
Okay.
So
We
have
never
a
name
friend
names, to be
who
clear.
lived through this experience.
Right.
Right. So he met a chick. They started going out. He met her on holiday. They hit it off. Holiday romance that kind of blossomed into a bit more than a holiday romance.
Yeah.
He went to link her outside of the UK, wherever she's actually from. He was there for a couple of months, whatever, while they were trying to make this thing work. And then this idea of the body count came up, basically.
Oh boy.
And it turned out, like, I think in the end, she gave him a number, basically, that he wasn't comfortable with.
Yeah.
Was it higher than his phone number?
No, it wasn't higher than his phone number, but it was like higher than 100. And that was a problem for
Don't
him.
be toxic.
That was a problem for him, basically.
Okay.
Because he was like, hold on,
What age?
I'm
were
not
they?
sure if I can deep this.
We need to
basically.
get to the bottom of why that's a problem now.
So part of the issue, I think that was an issue for him is partly because like
Male ego.
sure
Just say
the
it.
ego's
Just say it.
100% part
Toxic
of it.
masculinity.
No,
Yeah.
the ego's part of it, but also like I guess without trying to give it away too much, where he was a relatively small town,
Yeah.
city kind
Yeah.
of environment.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess he felt self-conscious a little bit about going out in this area, knowing that she's basically pieced 100 other men there,
Yeah.
and everyone he wasn't able to tell from the people he was meeting who's been pieced and who's not.
I
pieced,
think
and
that-
that made him feel uncomfortable.
I think that is probably the only. You're right, mate.
Excuse me.
Bless
Carry on.
you.
Thank you.
I think that's probably one of the more acceptable reasons why one would choose not to be with somebody who has had multiple partners. Because if you are constantly faced with reminders of the person's past whatevers, then that's uncomfortable just in a human
But
nature,
let's say you're not
in a
faced
human
with
nature
it.
sense.
His issue
but
is-
if you meet somebody from across the fucking world and you're both on a new journey together and turns out this person's had a very active sex life, bruv, grow up.
So you say you would never.
well, there's active
You would never
and
be
there's-
with. You would never be with someone who has been with someone that you know.
Define no.
Let's say they've been with a friend of yours
Yep.
5 years ago.
Yep.
Your friend's moved on. She's clearly moved on, and something's sparkling between the two of you.
Absolutely fucking not.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
There
Never in a
are
million
way too
years.
many women in the world.
Yeah, 100%. Doesn't make sense.
Fair enough. But someone who isn't your friend that you do know.
It's also a little unattractive.
Somebody who isn't
why is
my
it
friend
why is
that
it
I know, calm.
Okay. Why is it unattractive?
Say that again. What's calm?
Calm. Somebody who isn't my friend, but I do know them. I can be with their ex, of course.
Yeah, I try to steer clear of
Any previous mutual contact?
exactly.
I mean, in an
There's
ideal,
so many chicks
in an
the
ideal
world
situation
that
for
why am
sure.
I going to go
But
out with an ex of a friend or an acquaintance? Basically, whether you're
why
my friend
She
or
might be
not.
the one.
What if it's Chioma?
Yeah,
I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I would.
Watch Blue Therapy
I
episode
would
4, by the way.
definitely- It
I
also
don't
wouldn't
know.
really take much to because he's a waste man.
The
So,
world's
like,
too
what you-
big, basically, for you to have to.
You know him, but you know he's Paul.
Yeah,
Oh,
then you might
that's-
do it on principle.
Yeah, that's an incentive.
The same way I
That's an
disagree with
incentive.
Johnny on principle, basically.
Yeah, that's an incentive.
What would you do? What's your rules on that shit?
Friend of an ex is a sticky one.
Sticky. not ruled out, but sticky.
No, he said sticky. But he definitely would because he
No,
wasn't convinced with your reaction. He looked at your reaction. He was like, "What?
No.
Are you
friend of
for
an ex-
sure?"
No, friend of an ex.
Oh.
Friend of an ex. You wouldn't. Friend of someone you know. Yeah, sure. Why
Yeah.
not? Like, give a shit.
Okay. Friend of somebody you know.
How about? But
Friend-
you don't have an issue with. Say it's a friend of an ex of a friend.
Yeah.
But your mate's cool with it.
So
So,
that's still a bit sticky.
Yeah, no.
but your mate's blessed. He's moved on. He's got another relationship.
Still sticky.
Are you sure?
Well, it depends on the depends on what we're dealing with.
I don't know. For me, it's a big turn off. Basically, when I know that like a girl that I like has been with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Khalas.
Look, if a
But-
friend
Shiloh.
if a friend of mine happens to have had a 2-month thing with Halle Berry, and they ended, and she's like, "I'm into Jewish boys now," I'm not going to say no.
No thanks.
No, fair play. Thank you to the contributor, the submitter.
Thank you very much.
Our thoughts are with you. I really hope you're able to maneuver this next phase in your relationship. But I echo what Tommy said. This isn't too much of a problem. I think once you have a conversation about that lie, you set your stall out and you let this motherfucker know, please don't lie to my face like that again. I beg, motherfucker, right? I love you. You might get your seed in me one day, so play it cool. Then you can move on. I think it would be fine. Fair?
Agreed.
So, I think it's time to wrap up, man. This has been fucking sick. Shout out Pretty Patel.
Never.
You fucking dog.
Never. Rich's secret crush.
No. Angela Rayner, baby.
Oh, yeah, to be fair.
Angela Rayner, baby. She's ginger. I got a weakness for gingers.
Sounds like
no
we're
matter
about
what
to
they
start
look
a
like.
game of a
No matter-
crazy fuck, marry, kill game.
Yes.
That could be a good one.
Wait, hold on.
Write that
We
down.
just need a third.
Hold on, Lisa Nandy.
Nandy,
Pretty
yeah.
Patel, Angela Rayner, Lisa Nandy. Which one?
one's Lisa Nandy?
Shadow Foreign Secretary.
I'm gonna have to Google that.
Oh boy.
I don't know if we want to do this. You know, I think we should edit this. No,
Marry-
this is the part where we fade
Marry-
out.
Well, we'll see
Marry,
what
fuck,
people
kill.
say. We'll come back to this
Kill
next week
Pretty.
if it's
Oh, no,
backed
it
by
feels wrong
popular
saying it.
demand.
It feels wrong saying it. It feels wrong saying it. But marry Angela Rayner.
Whoever the other two women are in the
What was
world.
the other girl's name?
Yes.
Lisa Nandy, woman, not girl.
Yeah.
Woman, Lisa.
But yo, you know where we're at. This Kid and Terribly, episode 17. YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud. We are here every other week. We drop on Tuesday. Tell a friend to tell a friend. If your people like podcasts, this is the one to be listening to. Big up man like Johnny. Big up man like Tommy. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Peace
Much
out.
love.